For years now, it feels like the government is really hostile towards small business, towards entrepreneurs, certainly not paving the way for entrepreneurs the way they seem to be paving the way for big businesses. And what can we do as entrepreneurs, as business owners, to thrive in what appears sometimes to be quite a hostile environment from the government, whether it's regulation, whether it's government shutdowns, whatever is going on? How do we thrive during this? And we have an expert on this topic. I'm really thrilled to have Dan Varroney with us today. Dan is the author of Rethinking Economic Growth. And the subtitle, I think, is even more important: how small businesses can help consistently grow the economy. I think entrepreneurship is the economic driver of the world. So I'm just a huge fan of entrepreneurship, and love to have other fans of entrepreneurship on the Wealthability Show. So Dan, welcome to the Wealthability Show. And if you would, give us a little of your background. It's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you, Tom. It's an absolute thrill to be with you. And I am a devout entrepreneur myself. But I will tell you that my entire life, I have been an activist, starting at 11 years old, working in Republican political campaigns back in the New York area and then in northern New Jersey. I believed if you wanted to make it better, you had to get out there and find candidates and work for candidates that would help make it better. I have had a tremendous career, and it's all been about advocating. I started with the National Association of Manufacturers, spent 23 years advocating for small, medium, and large manufacturing companies. After that, I went and advocated for organizations that belong to Association for Corporate Growth, the lower middle market deal makers, the private equity, investment banker, corporate development folks. And then following that, I had an unbelievable career opportunity. I worked for Newt Gingrich. I helped run his American Solutions Policy and Advocacy organization. And for 2.5 years, we did a lot to help small business. We wrote a tax plan to help small business. We went out and met with small businesses all over the country. We wrote op-eds about small business. He invited me to write a chapter in what was to be one of his best-selling books about small business. After that, I did some interim CEO work, and I decided I was going to let my inner entrepreneur come forward. And I opened up my company, Potomac Core Consulting. My company is 13 and a half years old. And when everybody says, if I had to do it again, would I do it differently or sooner? And I'd say how I would do it differently is I would have started 5 years sooner. I love being an entrepreneur. I love inventing things. I love building a business. I love my clients. I love finding new clients. What I do is I do market research and strategic planning, engagement planning for trade associations. And it's a different methodology. We're all about aligning our clients with the industries that they serve. In addition to that, I moderate a CEO group of trade association CEOs. We meet 3 or 4 times a year, and that's an absolute blast. And I'm an author. You've started talking about my second book. My first book came out in January 2022. That was called Reimagining Industry Growth. And I wrote that because everybody said with all this polarization, nothing was getting done. And I found 5 industries and their trade associations who were, in fact, getting things done by building these very large ecosystems that help far extend their reach, and as a result, we're able to shape a better business environment for themselves. So an author is what I do, and now I'm writing a lot of op-eds about small business.
That's fascinating. So one of the first things I heard was the National Association of Manufacturers. I was actually on the board of the Phoenix chapter years and years ago of the National Association of Manufacturers. So
well, I'll tell you, that's marvelous. The other thing I forgot to tell you is that we lived in suburban Cook County, Illinois for 24 years. For 21 of those years, I was on the city council in Palatine, Illinois. So I've also been an elected official. So it's been a robust, engaging, energizing career for me.
Well, I'm glad you're finally into the actual entrepreneurship, because that's where it's actually fun. I love you love innovating. To me, the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who innovates and is constantly innovating and creating in order to produce better goods and services to their customers. And not enough business owners are entrepreneurs. I'd love to see more business owners actually say, "Hey, look, it's not just about making money. It's actually
Yep.
about creating a better life for not just you, but for the people around you." When you think about entrepreneurship and small business, now you've been advocating for small business, obviously your entire career. But there does seem to be maybe less so in this administration. And people may just say, well, why am I even listening to this when we have an administration that seems to be all pro business? But my question is it pro small business or pro big business? And there is very much a distinction. And a lot of things, we talk about innovation, a lot of things never take off because the big businesses squelch them. Either politically they squelch them or they go buy them and then put them on the shelf. So what do how do, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, how do you navigate that so that you are dealing with the government in such a way that you're going to thrive and you can get through all of that morass of rules?
Great question. So I told you that I've spent my life as an advocate, and an advocate is finding the right place, the right conversation to make the right points. So I'm part of a group that Mark Halperin, the political journalist, runs. It's called the Two-Way Community. And about a year ago, he sent me a text and said, "Hey, before the presidential election, I'm going to have Scott Bessent on. And if Trump wins, I think he's going to have a big role in the second Trump administration. Do you think you can be on this call? I know you're writing a book about small business." And I said, "Let me move my schedule around. I'll be on the call." Lo and behold, Mark Halperin called on me and gave me the ability to ask a question of Scott Bessent. And here's what I asked. And I said, "Scott, thanks for being here. It seems to me in the last 30 or 40 years, politicians on both sides of the political aisle have said amazing things about small business. We love small business. We need small business. But at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot of delivery. So in a second Trump administration, when it comes to tax policy, how and to what extent are businesses, but specifically small businesses, going to be able to take advantage of them?" And I said, to give an example of what I mean, in the first Trump administration, there was 100% expensing for equipment. How about plants and equipment? His answer was, "So you're right, exactly right, and we're committed to small business. And I think in a second Trump administration, we will support 100% expensing for plants and equipment and build in some other preferences in the tax code." So when the big, beautiful bill was introduced, I went and researched it, and lo and behold, there was
Yep.
the 100% expensing for plants and equipment. And I also saw other benefits and advantages for pass-through businesses and so on and so forth. But what I will say to you is that what I'm seeing now out of this administration is as follows. So first and foremost, I think that this tax bill is a boon for entrepreneurs, and I'm very excited about it. But something needs to happen that's really going to change the game, and that is the availability and cost of capital. The cost of capital today is still too high, and while the Federal Reserve has got interest rates down to 3 3/4 and 4%, it's not low enough. It needs to get down to 3%. I believe when the Federal Reserve brings that number down to 3%, that small businesses are going to be able to take full advantage of the one big, beautiful bill, and they're going to be able to invest in plants and equipment, and they're going to hire people. And I think that's a huge advantage. So that's part one. Part two, what I'll share with you is that in the last administration, small businesses had to absorb regulations to the tune of 1.3, $1.4 trillion. And I'm going to tell you, the big companies have got the cash flow, and the platform to be able to absorb those. They can hire people, they can bring in consultants to help them comply. So on average, small businesses in this country, so over 99% of companies in this country are small business. The average small business is 8 people. So think of regulations of 1.3 to 1.4 trillion dollars and having to figure out a way to comply with those. Now, what I learned from the 35 small business interviews in my book, that they're leveraging trade associations and they're finding ways to get that information without busting their budget too much. But the point is, there's a burden. What the Trump administration has done, and they're continuing to do, is a very aggressive regulatory unwind. And I think that, in fact, is helping small businesses. So I think that this second Trump administration has a deliberate focus on small business. And I think they do for a number of key reasons. One of which is small business is almost half of the US economy. Two of three new private sector jobs come from small businesses. So we are right now in a rapid labor market deceleration. It's a deterioration. And if we
Mm.
want those jobs to come back, they're going to come back from where? From small business. What I said to you is that 2/3 of private company jobs are going to come from where? They're going to come from small businesses. So I have written a series of op-eds that I will share with you. The most recent one was published over this past weekend. And I urge the Federal Reserve to reduce interest rates by 50 basis points at the meeting yesterday and 50 basis points at the meeting in December. That would have gotten the interest rate to 3%. That's why I did it. But the long and short of it is I think this administration is far more favorable to small business than the prior administration. And I think they are, in fact, taking steps to help small businesses. I think their National Economic Council, I think Kevin Hassett, who runs that, is very economically savvy, and he's advising the president to make sure that the administration is doing everything possible to help and support small businesses.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Now, I will say that of all of President Trump's appointments, my favorite is Scott Bessent. I I'm constantly
Really, I mean,
amazed at
this just a
how much
smart
he
guy.
takes on. What a smart
Yeah,
guy. Apparently, what a good guy. And
yep.
now there were a couple of things in the big beautiful bill. Of course, my expertise is the tax law, and a couple of things that I found interesting. I wanted to kind of run by you. One is they did raise the definition of small business a couple of times in that bill. So, for example, for the 1202 capital gains exemption, they raised the number, what's a small business, from 50 million to 75 million. There's, of course, the 25 million that came about in 2017 has been indexed and it's up to 31 million.
Right.
Um, Mike, one of my questions is, will we get more push up? Because, for example, you mentioned the expensing of the qualified production facilities. That originally, in the original bill, actually had a limit that you had to be a small business, and there's no limit on it. It passed without a limit, which means that big businesses are going to get, really,
Right.
it's not targeted at small business anymore. In the end, it's targeted at any manufacturing, which I'm fine with. And then another question I have, a question I have for you is, there's a real disconnect between our generation, yours and mine, and the youth. And the youth are feeling like, hey, the opportunities are not the same. And I'm looking for kind of your thoughts on this, because I look at it and going, wow, it's never been easier to start a business. You have AI available, you have iPhones available, you have laptops available that are so powerful. I'm going, it's so easy, and yet they're not feeling that. How do we get more small business from the basically Gen Z and millennials, but particularly Gen Z? How do we get more
Okay.
small business out of this group?
So you asked two questions. Let me answer the first question first. So what I would share with you is that this president and this Secretary of Treasury are passionate about growth. It runs in their blood. It's in their DNA. And I think that they wanted something that would grow the entire economy. And when you look at the fact that in the current quarter that GDP is almost 4%. GDP growth, essentially where that's come from, is massive investment taking advantage of that 100%. A lot of it's gone to new technology, like technology and AI and automation. So that's why I believe they did that. But what I want to share with you is the complexity in how small business is defined. So I did a dozen case studies in my book. And what I will tell you is that for different industries and industry segments, it's defined differently by employee size and revenue size.
Right.
And one of the reasons for the push out to the 75 million was because you've got small businesses that qualify in that $75 million category. And I would argue that you've got small businesses that would qualify in that $100 million
Yeah,
category as well.
I agree. I
So
actually
I
think it
think,
should be 100 million, period. Across
yeah,
the board should
exactly.
be 100 million for a small
Uh,
business.
um,
When we look at like our typical client in my CPA firm, we have clients over 100 million, but our typical client is under 100 million. That seems to be the
yep.
demarcation between the smaller business and the bigger business.
So what I would say is that there needs to be a standardization of the definition, and with a standardization of the definition, there can come greater clarity around tax policy related to small business. Now, with regard to the youth, so here's what's interesting, especially about, let's say, the Gen Z. Um, so I work across a number of different industries, and Gen Zs want to be involved in things that have purpose and mission. And what I would offer to you and to others who are trying to uh, get Gen Zs and the generation ahead of them engaged and involved in entrepreneurship and business ownership, it's how about looking for a business that has a mission and a purpose
Mhm.
that you can drive? And because that's what this generation is interested in. And I think that there needs to be deliberate efforts and a deliberate focus around entrepreneurship and business around focus and purpose and mission.
I agree. Now, I will tell you that I talk to millennials all the time because my kids are millennials age, and a lot of what I hear is, well, we're handcuffed. The baby boomers, they've like taken all the wealth. They pushed prices up so much, which I agree. We have pushed prices up so much, like they can't. It's so much harder to buy a house when you add interest rates to that, which you've talked about the interest rates. But it is. I mean, when I bought my
Uh,
first house, yes, I had a 16% interest rate, but it was $60,000, right?
Same here. Mine
Not
was
six.
40. Mine
It
was
wasn't
mine was
six
49
hundred
eight.
thousand
Yeah,
dollars like it is
right.
today, right? So it is. That's proportionally. It seems out of proportion, and so their concern is, well, how do I break into this? How do we how do we bridge that gap? Because to me, it's like, well, it's like it's so easy to break into it. I don't have to buy anything.
Tom, here's what's interesting. I love my business, and so here's why I did what I did. So when I started, I met with my financial planner, and he just said, "So are you going to do the traditional bricks and mortar approach and hire people, or how do you want to do it?" And I said, "So I want to be an entrepreneur about this." And he said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And I said, "I want to build a distributed business model." He said, "What?" I said, "I am going to engage independent contractors and build partnerships with them. I will engage them when I have clients. I will work from my home. I will take advantage of the home business exemption. I will have a small satellite virtual office in addition to that, but I'm going to keep my costs low, maximize my cash, and then utilize my cash to get into new lines when possible." And what I did is I took a uh, low overhead distributed business model, um, and I created opportunities to grow the business utilizing the home business exemption. And that's how I did it. And what I will tell you is that my wife and I bought the house we're living in. Uh, you're not going to believe this because it was 12 years ago. we got a 15-year mortgage that we paid off several months ago. And you're going to say, Dan, how did you do that? The way that we did that is because I had cash, because I was leveraging myself through a distributed business model, keeping my expenses low, bringing in on a low expense, relatively high profit base, paying all my taxes, taking the leftover, and double, triple paying my mortgage. So why was I doing that? Because I didn't want to pay all the interest.
Hmm.
So when somebody says it can't be figured out, there's always a way to figure it out. If you don't have a home today, and by the way, my wife and I didn't live in our first full-time, our first single family house, like real house, until we were married 15, 16 years. You've got to be able to think outside of the norm. How could I
I
create
love
a
that. And
business?
we need, I think we do need to teach that more. That needs to be emphasized more. I have a particular question that I want to ask you, because it's been very clear, both in the tariff discussions, in the tax bill. We're in to a large part, we're a service economy, and yet the service businesses do not get the same advantages that the manufacturing businesses get. Okay, we don't get the 20% deduction, the
Right.
qualified small business deduction. We don't get a lot of the benefits that manufacturing or brick and mortar get. Why is that? What is it that, that does the administration say, well, you just are on your own, or
No,
why do you think service businesses do not get those advantages?
so here's what I would tell you. Because I spent 23 years working for the National Association of Manufacturers, I have a little bit of background. What I will tell you that for every 2 to 3 manufacturing jobs created, I'm sorry, for every manufacturing job created, there are 2 to 3 service industry jobs created. Manufacturing has a magnifier effect. So when the president talks about reshoring manufacturing, so right now the manufacturing base has shrunk to 9%. The president is looking at growing that. So why is he looking at growing that? So let's, for sake of this discussion, say we can grow it from 9% to 20%. I want you to think of the additional service industry jobs that will be created because all of those new manufacturing jobs will be created. So there is a magnifier effect in manufacturing. Every job they create, 2 to 3 service industry jobs are created. So that's why manufacturing jobs have got a premium attached to them. The other thing is that manufacturing jobs are a key component of creating the wealth effect. They invest in local communities. They spend in local communities. So that's why manufacturing jobs are treated almost as a premium, but service jobs in many ways benefit from manufacturing job creation.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. And I'm actually not disputing that. I like the manufacturing incentives in the tax bill, for example. I particularly like those. What I don't understand is why is the retailer, the online retailer, treated better than the online professional service provider? That I do not understand, because I think the online there's a magnifying effect. You talked about your partnerships and your team. Well, I'm sure your team includes an accountant, an attorney, an insurance agent. You mentioned your financial planner.
I
These
I,
are
I have
people that
I
absolutely magnify the
I
economy, and yet it's not that we're not looking for special treatment. We just like to not have special treatment, because the professional services industry absolutely does not get the same benefits as the rest of the economy. Okay, I'm not just
so,
talking
so
about
so
manufacturing.
so what I'll share with you is I've got the insurance person, I've got the accounting firm, I've got the financial planner, I've got the web firm. I can go, and it's like you can't run a business without these folks. You absolutely need them. What I will suggest to you is that I think that for a very long time, that service businesses, uh, at their own risk, have been very convenient, always there, and always getting it done. And when you're that way and you're always available and you're always
You're
getting it
taken for
done,
granted.
you're taken for granted, right? And
I think that's fair. And one of the challenges with that, of course, is that in the accounting profession, we're losing professionals by the droves. We do not have the replacements coming in to take the place of those. Now, AI will help some, but it doesn't help with the intellectual capital. I mean, you don't
no, it
replace
doesn't.
intellectual capital with AI. You replace worker bees with AI. So you are losing. If you look at third world countries, what happens? What makes them a third world country? Well, a lot of times they've driven out their intellectual capital. So what happens in a lot of African nations, for example, that I'm familiar with. That you go to Zimbabwe. Well, why used to be the breadbasket of the world? Why isn't it? Well, they drove out their intellectual capital. Okay, so that's I think it's a to me it's a I'm afraid for what happens when you don't have that intellectual capital coming in because you're not rewarding
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, Tom, here's my take on it. My take on it that the in order for this country to not only survive but really to thrive, that we've got to maintain our base of intellectual capital. And what I'll suggest to you is that as the industrial base grows, the service base will grow, and I'm confident that we will maintain a very strong base of intellectual capital. And here's the other thing that I would offer along those lines is that I feel that uh, careers in general, the accountants, the insurance professionals. I mean, these are careers you have to study and work hard for,
Mhm.
and you've got to build a business around. So I will tell you about my financial planner, who I've been friends with, by the way, for 47 years. He started out as a one-person accountant, and as we sit today, he is president and CEO of a fully integrated business model that includes different types of insurance lines, accounting, and investment services. And he built this from the ground up, built this from the ground up. And it's just remarkable. And you want to talk about a business like yours. Uh, and when I think of the value that he has added in the local communities that he serves, it's been tremendous. And the same with you, the value that you've added in your local community. The issue is it is taken for granted, and I think that there needs to be a more concentrated effort to create levels of recognition of the value of you and these other service businesses.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with giving us the qualified business income deduction. We'll
Yeah,
start there, okay? Pay fair wage, but then have the QBI after that. But you've been an advocate for your entire career. That has
yes,
been your career is as an advocate. So, and you talk in your book about advocacy. You talk about how we need to advocate, and you mentioned you were on the city council. And I've been involved in local, state, particularly state level
mhm,
politics quite a bit myself. What's your recommendation to small business owners as far as because we don't, typically you don't feel like, well, I'm not going to have a lot of out, I'm going to need my trade association to lobby it in Washington, but that I may not.
Here's what
But
here.
locally, I think we do have an
Yeah,
opportunity,
yeah,
and we actually have. We don't recognize how much of an opportunity we have. Can you talk a little bit about
yeah,
that and
yeah.
what you recommend as far as getting involved in the local community?
Yes. Bluntly, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And the way that you avoid that is you build relationships with local elected officials. They can be city council members, they can be county council members, they can be your legislators. Uh, they meet with and through the local chambers of commerce. I strongly encourage everyone listening to your podcast to engage with your local chambers of commerce to build relationships with your local elected officials. And if you do have standalone businesses, I would invite them to come by and have a cup of coffee with you, so you can talk about the business and the role your business plays in the community. And you want the ability when there's a key issue coming up to be heard, and you can only do that when you've got a one-on-one relationship with them. And it's important to be proactive in relationship building because if you don't, then you'll be on the menu instead of at the table.
Well, I think a good example of this, whether you like him or don't like him, Donald Trump's been very good at developing relationships with government. One of my of the most interesting provisions in the tax law that I'm very familiar with is the real estate professional
Yes.
exception to
Yeah.
passive losses. And
Yeah.
I am also very
Yeah.
familiar that the person
Yeah.
primarily responsible on the lobbying side of
Yeah.
that was Donald Trump. So you know, he has actually a good example of excuse me, of the benefit of being involved and having those connections. And you know, sometimes we complain about them, but maybe the answer is, don't beat them, join them. You know,
Yeah.
actually get to know them and be part of
Donald
the
Donald
answer.
Donald Trump has been in the relationship business his entire career.
Yep.
And what's been impressive to me is his ability to go to these foreign countries and to build these relationships and to achieve the level of deals that he does. But it's because he's in the relationship business. He's in the relationship business. He knows you just can't be president of the United States. You've got to be in the relationship business. That's how you build trust. You do it face to face, and it really matters. And that's why for the local business owners, if you don't have a relationship with your local elected officials, you're going to get in big trouble someday. They need to know you. They need to know you. And the way it look, and you can say it takes time. Well, let me tell you something. Uh, I say pay now or pay later. If you don't invest now, you will pay later.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, Dan, kind of wrapping up here, what are two or three things, specific actions that you think an entrepreneur could take to to be able to work more effectively within the government realm, so that you're not the so that you're not on the menu?
So I think the first thing is I think they need to go to Amazon and buy Rethinking Economic Growth. There are 12 case studies. You're going to read about 35 small business owners, and you will see how they are doing it. And how they're doing it is the right way. How they're doing it is they're building relationships locally. How they're doing it is they're building strong relationships with their trade associations. They're leveraging their trade associations to far extend their reach. So those are the two things
Oh, lost him.
down the pike as it is. What's you
So,
know
Dan, I'm
how
going to stop you just for a second. Go back to where you started there because you froze for a minute.
I'm sorry. Gosh, I don't know what happened.
That's
Um,
okay.
so that's all right. So first thing I would do is I would advise to go out and buy my book, Rethinking Economic Growth, at Amazon.com. You will see how 35 business owners are effectively building relationships, how they're staying ahead of the policy curve, how they're working with local elected officials, how they're building strong relationships with their trade associations, how they're leveraging their trade associations to far extend their reach, how they're leveraging their trade associations to offer them guidance on regulations and on policies that will impact their businesses. Those are all important things. And I will tell you that one of my greater takeaway is, uh, and this is an important takeaway, and I want to give emphasis to this, is that I learned that all the small businesses have a magnifier effect in their communities. The way that they're staying ahead of the curve is they're engaging with other small businesses in their communities. They're creating their own ecosystems. They're helping other small businesses uh, overcome problems and thrive. They're helping them figure out how to attract and keep new workers, how to grow their top lines, how to introduce new products, how to slim their cost structures. And I will tell you, that was probably my greatest takeaway in the book, how they're all helping one another be successful. And one of the things I'll share with you as we come to the end is that I want you to think of a group of small manufacturers in the Cleveland area, how they said, we need new workers. So they went to the county prosecutor and they said, uh, can we come up with a system whereby when nonviolent felons are released, that we can hire them and train them? And they came up with a way to do that. and they've addressed the worker shortage problem, and they've also helped reduce the recidivism rate in the greater Cleveland area. That's what entrepreneurship does, and that's what it's all about. Or for the small businesses in Alabama, how they're working with their local trade schools and utilizing them to develop programs and train workers in a way that gives them a pipeline of workers. The same thing that's happening in Greenville, South Carolina. It's all about creating a local ecosystem and coming up with solutions to solve problems in the local community. What that also does is it gives you visibility with elected officials, and you get identified as being a problem solver. And it opens the door for you to work with them on other opportunities.
I love it. These are great ideas. They're not ones we think about all the time. We're so busy in our business. Thank you, Dan Varroney, our guest. His book is Rethinking Economic Growth. Highly recommend. Recommend it to see how other business owners are actually doing this. They're actually taking the time. And remember, our job as entrepreneurs is to solve problems. And when we solve problems, a lot of times we're solving problems in the community, and that solves problems for us. It does not have to be mutually exclusive. It doesn't have to be donating our time. It can be something that actually works for us as well as the community. And as we get more involved, as we pay more attention and develop relationships, we're always going to make way more money and pay way less tax. We'll see you next time on The Wealthability Show. Thanks for listening to The Wealthability Show. If today's episode gave you a new perspective, remember this: the tax law is not your enemy. It's a roadmap. And when you know how to follow it, you can build real, lasting wealth. If you're a business owner or investor who's tired of overpaying taxes, the Wealthability Accelerator is your next step. You'll have the opportunity to work directly with me for 80% less than my standard rate. And I'll personally guide you through how to change your facts so that you can change your tax. Go to wealthability.com/bonus and apply today. Remember, it's not just what you make, it's what you keep.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.